Hey everyone, Tony D with the Piney podcast and some interesting updates. Well, first off at the top, let's get this out of the way. Beer virus. Today's caseload is about 3,500, so no real change. Now, the interesting thing was today, Governor Phil Murphy says that the case totals are starting to increase the further south you go. So we're seeing maybe a spread further south. I think that's going to be a very, very slow dynamic. At least I'm hoping. Because again, I mean, yes, you've got a breakout in Tom's River. Tom's River seems to be, when you get into central New Jersey, that seems to be the, I don't want to call it a hotspot, but you know, it's a more densely populated area, and they had some breakouts there. People got it for whatever reason. So yeah, and it's also along the Garden State Parkway. You know, anything along the Garden State Parkway or the Turnpike is going to be, you know, an avenue to New York, and people work. You know, they commute 90 minutes one way just to work in New York sometimes, or they take the bus or whatever. So, you know, you have to sort of take that with a grain of salt. It would only have taken 2 or 3 people who worked in New York to start spreading it in Tom's River with a 2-week incubation period. So I don't think that's going to apply to, say, a county like Salem or Cape May. I don't think there's a lot of people commuting. You know, that would be closer to 2 hours one way. I mean, I'm sure there's 1 or 2. That seems like too long for someone to do, you know, every day, 5 days a week. But I know that people in my area do it out of Mount Laurel, because it's a straight up 90-minute shot on the bus. So I wouldn't expect the virus to come down the state. But I could be wrong. I mean, I got to think with mitigation efforts with the face mask and people social distancing, you know, even if that's true, there's not much to be done. I mean, you cannot lock down this state forever. It's becoming too long. People are starting to go a little crazy, and we'll get into that. So good signs. The governor has doubled the number of certain bus routes. And what he's done is there was an order given to the buses that, first off, everybody has to have a face mask, which you should if you're getting on a bus. Come on. But they're running at half capacity. So he doubled the number of buses, which is a good thing. I mean, the price of gas has basically gone in half. So it's kind of a push, at least in terms of that cost. You know, you're going to need more bus drivers, and I guess there'll be slightly more pollution, but, you know, people need to get around still. People are still doing stuff. Some people are still working. And this will be a good, you know, ramping up for when things do open, hopefully at the end of the month, or start to open. On the downside of that, the Dalton farm, which has their tulip farm, and they offer tours, was shut down. It was either today or a couple of days ago. I don't understand why the state would shut down a tulip farm tour outside in a farm. I can't imagine there was enough people to be worried about, you know, transmitting disease on a tulip farm tour. I mean, come on. This is a family business. It's a small business. These people are trying to, and people need to go out. And now maybe because everybody was cooped up and they looked online like, oh my God, the tulip farm's open. Let's go. I don't see why you would shut it down anyway. It's outside. And you want to talk about your chances are a hell of a lot lower with the wind outside and the air. And so come on. If they're social distancing and wearing masks, is that really necessary to close down a local family business like that? I think that is too much. I think it was an assistant prosecutor who did that. You know, I think he's just really trying to be a big D if you will. I'm trying not to curse on this video because I'm going to do another video where I curse a lot. Uh, yeah, open the Dalton farm, I say. I support the farm to be open during this time. I'm sure they would have to make adjustments. They had a tiny gift shop or something. I wouldn't want to see them open that. I would want to see them, maybe just say, only one person in the store at a time or something like that. If it was one of those like tiny little gift shops. But come on, these people own a family business. This is tulip season. The tulips aren't going to be around in a month. That is just ridiculous. So this is the kind of overreach. This is why you're getting protests. And I will talk about the protest in another video. So the buses, the Dalton farm. There was also an article following up on the nursing homes where all the people died in Andover. It turns out that the New York Times exaggerated the crisis severely, and they said something like 70 people had died from the beer virus. That was definitely not true as soon as I saw that, but they're not exactly sure what these people died from exactly. But it turns out that this old folks' home was more of like a hospice situation. Like, these were people really at the end. So the fact that a lot of people died, some of those deaths probably weren't all that unusual for that facility. So I think people may have jumped the gun on that, myself included a little bit. I didn't really drill down into the article, but maybe I should have. Still, though, I mean, people did die apparently from the virus. They're just not exactly sure how many. But certainly the New York Times was way out of line reporting it as 70. And that seems kind of lazy. I'm not a journalist. I'm not purporting to be a journalist doing this stuff. I'm just commenting. I try to be accurate, but, if you're in the New York Times, you got to double check your sources. You got, that's the rule of journalism. I'm not being paid six figures to do this. They are, and they should step up or let somebody else willing to do that research to take their place. And there are plenty of people who would actually do the research. And you're going to find out in the coming weeks when people start getting fired and laid off that maybe you should have went the extra mile. That's just my opinion. Anyhow, overall things in South Jersey. It's a big storm today, so watch out for that. Lots of wind, some thunder and lightning, but nothing too major. We're starting to get into the summer seasons. It's just around the corner, and when that happens, we get a ton of lightning down this way because it's very humid and the air is like charged, kind of thing. Don't mess around with lightning, and I'll tell you the story. I tell the story all the time if I haven't told it already in the video, but there was a friend of the family, and I'm in an Italian family so he was considered family, and he was actually struck and killed by lightning. And he was a father and had kids, and he was in the prime of his life, and my cousins were all there, and they got struck too, because what happened was the lightning hit a tree and went down into like the ground and came up, and then it also hit the house. And so there were I think 4 of my cousins were outside at that time, and my dad thankfully had gone inside, which was kind of unusual for him because he's one of those guys who would be like, lightning, it'll be fine. But thank God he went inside. But they all got knocked to their feet, and he was, I guess, closest to the tree, and they started doing CPR, but he never woke up. So don't mess around. And then the scariest thing about that, his father actually died from being struck by lightning as well. Something like 30 years prior. He was on a fishing boat, out in a rowboat, and he was holding a knife and got struck by lightning, and he died. So don't mess around with lightning. Is the point of this story? It's nothing to mess around with. If you're out and you start hearing a rumbling, get inside. It's just not worth it. I usually shut down my computer if it gets too rumbly, and I just chill out in the house for a little while until the storm will pass quickly, 9 times out of 10. I mean, it's not like you're going to be hours of thunder, lightning. So, use some common sense. It's a real danger. Anyhow, that's it for the Piney Podcast. We will see you next time.